Close your eyes for a second and imagine. You're standing in the middle of London nearly 300 years ago. It's early morning, but the city already feels restless, like it hasn't slept in weeks. Smoke curls through narrow streets, boots scrape against wet stone, and somewhere nearby, a crowd laughs too loudly for this hour. Then you notice the smell. It cuts through everything, sharp, sweet, and strangely inviting. People follow it like a trail, slipping into tiny doorways and cellar stairs, chasing something stronger than hunger or exhaustion. This wasn't just a drink. It was a promise. And that promise almost destroyed the city. Before this moment, London had always been a city of beer. Ale was safe, familiar, and almost part of daily food. Workers drank it before work, during work, and after work. Nobody expected alcohol to become a threat, because it had never been one before. But history rarely changes slowly. Sometimes one decision flips a switch, and suddenly an entire culture moves in a direction no one predicted. When new policies made strong grain spirits cheap and easy to produce, the streets filled with cellars overnight. You didn't need a license. You didn't need training. All you needed was a barrel and an audience desperate enough to buy what you were offering. And London was desperate. The early 1700s were not kind to the working class. Crowded housing, unstable jobs, and long winters left people searching for anything that could dull reality for a few hours. The new spirit arrived at exactly the wrong moment, or maybe exactly the right moment, depending on who was making money from it. For the price of a small meal, you could drink something powerful enough to erase the noise of the world. It burned going down, but that burn felt like warmth, like hope, like control over a life that often felt out of control. Within a few years, entire neighborhoods transformed. Signs appeared promising quick escape from misery. Tiny shops glowed with candlelight late into the night, while music and shouting spilled into the streets. At first, it felt like a strange kind of celebration, as if the city had discovered a secret energy. But underneath the laughter, something darker was growing. People started missing work. Arguments turned into fights. Families struggled to keep routines that had once felt stable. The drink didn't arrive as a villain. It arrived as a solution, and that's what made it so dangerous. One of the most shocking changes was how social rules began to blur. Public drinking spaces filled with men and women together, something that startled traditional observers. Some saw it as freedom, others saw it as chaos. Children wandered between stalls, while adults chased another moment of relief inside crowded rooms thick with smoke. The rhythm of daily life shifted, and the city felt louder, faster, more unpredictable. As demand exploded, sellers competed to make their product stronger and cheaper. Quality became secondary to profit. Stories spread about strange mixtures and questionable ingredients, but most buyers didn't ask questions. They only cared about the effect, the sudden silence in their thoughts, the brief feeling that nothing could hurt them anymore. The streets filled with people moving between exhaustion and euphoria, and doctors began to notice physical changes they couldn't fully explain. Meanwhile, politicians faced a complicated dilemma. The booming trade brought wealth to powerful landowners and merchants, and taxes from grain production filled government coffers. On paper, the economy looked stronger than ever. But outside those offices, ordinary citizens struggled with the consequences. Attempts to restrict the drink sparked anger. Crowds gathered, shouting that the government wanted to take away the only comfort many people could afford. When laws tightened, sellers simply moved deeper into hidden corners of the city, creating a shadow market that thrived on secrecy. Artists, writers, and observers started documenting what they saw. Instead of statistics, they painted scenes of ordinary life turned upside down. Crumbling buildings, neglected streets, people searching for escape in places that promised warmth but delivered something far more complicated. These images spread through society, forcing people who had ignored the problem to confront it directly. The narrative shifted from excitement to concern, and slowly the public began to ask whether the city had lost control of something it once believed was harmless. There were moments when it felt like London stood on the edge of collapse. Rumours travelled faster than facts. Some claimed that heavy drinkers suffered mysterious fates, and stories of strange incidents filled conversation. Whether exaggerated or not, these tales reveal how deeply fear had taken hold. When people start believing anything is possible, it means they sense that normal rules no longer apply. Eventually, authorities realized that fighting the drink head-on only made it more appealing. Instead of trying to erase it overnight, they began reshaping the culture around it. New policies limited easy credit, encouraged alternative beverages, and made it harder for sellers to operate without accountability. Change came slowly, almost invisibly at first. Tea houses grew popular, offering quieter spaces compared to noisy spirit shops. Gradually, the chaos that once defined entire districts began to soften. But recovery didn't erase memory. The city carried scars, physical and emotional, long after the worst years faded. Certain neighborhoods gained reputations that followed them into the future. Writers later described these streets as symbols of a world divided between opportunity and struggle, shaped by choices made decades earlier. The crisis didn't just change drinking habits, it reshaped how London understood poverty, community, and responsibility. What makes this story feel surprisingly modern is how familiar the pattern seems. A new product appears, promising relief and excitement. It spreads quickly because people want to believe in its benefits. Only later do the hidden costs become impossible to ignore. The city learned that progress without boundaries can create as many problems as it solves, and that regulation often arrives only after damage has already been done. Today, if you walk through London, you'll see polished bars and carefully crafted drinks that feel worlds away from the chaos of the past. Yet beneath the modern lights lies a reminder of a time when the line between celebration and crisis blurred, until no one could tell where one ended and the other began. The people who lived through those years were not simply reckless. They were responding to a world that moved faster than they could adapt. Their story is less about failure and more about survival, about how a city confronted a problem that threatened to redefine it entirely. History rarely announces itself with dramatic music or clear warnings. It arrives quietly, disguised as opportunity, and only later reveals its true weight. The rise of cheap spirits in London wasn't just a chapter about alcohol. It was a test of resilience. And in the end, the city did what great cities always do. It changed, learned, and moved forward, carrying the memory of its darkest experiment as a reminder that even the strongest societies must remain careful about what they choose to embrace. Because sometimes, the most dangerous revolutions don't begin with weapons or wars. Sometimes, they begin with a simple glass placed into the hands of people who just want to forget their troubles. And a city that doesn't realize how close it is to losing itself until the echoes of laughter start to sound more like a warning than a celebration.